welcome to another edition of Value My Vote One-on-One with the candidates. And we are joined by a beautiful young lady, the independent mayoral candidate, Mrs. Catalina Byrd. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm just right. Okay, so we're inside of Baltimore City's elections 2011. You are the independent candidate for mayor. That means that you need a certain amount of signatures to get onto the ballot, and you will be running on November 8th general election.
Yes.
And just to let the viewers know, if they don't, you are a remarkable young lady. You were the former host of On Point Blog Talk Radio. You're a journalist. You're a poet. And most importantly, though, you're a single mother, 30 years old, of a great young man who's actually on the honor roll this year, Sean, 8 years old. With all that, what made you decide to run for mayor this year, and what made you decide to run as an independent?
Well, I'd made the decision to run for mayor about 15 years ago when I saw my dad run and I had a greater understanding of politics versus policy. And until you see how greatly different they are, do you not begin to understand why things stay the same? So I knew that my 30th birthday and this particular mayoral election would come in the same year. And that had been my primary focus from high school on, is going about learning and acquiring the skills that are needed to effectively run a city. Understanding legislation, how laws are written, how they're passed, as well as community development and building sustainable communities, and the importance of business and the intersection between business and politics. And so now it's game time, and we're in that year. But the climate right now seems to have almost made it by way of fate or the universe or who knows what. It actually seems to cater to this vision that I had as a ninth grader, because the city has been in a turmoil. We've seen a number of changes in these last couple of administrations, and the people on the ground don't feel like anything is getting better for them. So my decision to be an independent is because I've lived here my whole life, and I've seen 50 plus years of Democratic control gain nothing for the people unless those people are the chosen ones. The Republicans as a national and their total ideology is not one that I support wholeheartedly, so I could never be that. And for as long as I'm going to be a voter candidate or not, I'd like to be a constituency of one so that I can continue to just pay attention to the issues that I know I'm most concerned with.
And just like your father has, obviously, he's a Republican, Victor Clark, but he transcends political lines and has been a leader in this city for decades. Tell the people, what is your platform and agenda to be the next mayor? What are you focused on?
Our platform, slogan-wise or in a concentrated sense, is education, economic development, and entrepreneurship. What we believe and what we know that studies and different reports prove is that focusing on a new way to deal with these three areas will bring out an opportunity to change some of our systemic problems, be it recidivism rates, ex-offenders, juvenile justice, blight, crime, you name it. But it begins in these three areas. We have to change the way that we educate. We're in a new millennium. We're still educating like we were in the last millennium. We have to invest in our entrepreneur and respect that small business and micro business is a viable function of economy, and especially in a city this small with this many artists and diverse types of industries and people that are here. And then economic development from a community standpoint, because a lot of people hear me say that, they think I'm in tow with the machine, thinking tourism only. But I believe that when we have, as a city, pockets all over the city that would attract people to want to come participate in the rehabilitation in the artist community here in Charles Village, or say you have something going on in the changes in Westport, in the West Side development area. Those types of things are going to be how we redevelop our economy with a community-based focus.
Education for years, decades, have in Baltimore City, being the lowest on the totem pole in this state, has always been about 15% of the budget. Whereas though crime and safety is about 40–45%. Would you change that dynamic as mayor? And do you support a elected school board, or do you like the current mayor governor appointed school board?
I would support an elected school board, but I would need to see from the people an activism in elections, beginning with this campaign, because an elected school board still operated by the machine is no different than what we have. It just has a new name. And so if we're not going to, as constituents and parents, begin taking our role as voters more seriously and coming out to the polls and stop giving us these grossly, embarrassing voter turnout rates in gubernatorial and presidential and mayoral election years, then it's not going to make a difference. But I'm in support of it because if anybody that knows anything about community development, CDCs tend to have a SHODOS board. And it is a requirement that they have an equal number of board members from the community that they serve, as well as the people who are the board of directors that help make the decisions about how to rebuild that community. And we need that constant source of input from the people on the front line who are going to have to live it and go through it versus those who have the ideas and want to make it come to fruition.
In Baltimore City, we have roughly about 47,000 vacant houses all across the city. The former Dixon administration had the Land Bank Authority. Now the current administration has what's called vacant to values. What would be your target or your aim in fixing that dilemma here in the city of Baltimore?
Well, one of the reasons that we have the blight, and I come from a background in real estate as well, is that it's very difficult to make a decision, or even unless you do it by eminent domain, do anything with these properties because someone else holds the ground rent. So the building, the eyesore, the part that we're most concerned about in our community, can't be handled because someone else, or their trust, or whomever it is that they left it to in their will, owns this ground rent and prevents us from being able to convey this property properly. We need to definitely do something about the blight, and there's a number, again, of entrepreneurs and small businesses and charter schools that are trying to be started here in Baltimore that would love to be able to have access and use to that space and would offset their own development costs if given the opportunity. Vacant to values, as well as the SCOPE program, had good intentions, I believe. But I don't think that in the way that the criteria is designed, it's really and truly going to benefit the business owner from Baltimore who wants to continue to do business in Baltimore.
You're 30 years old. You're not a Democrat, which has run this city since the last time we had a Republican mayor was in 1965 with McKeldin. Why should the voters vote for you opposed to a Democratic, older, kind of machine type of candidate?
The same thing that I said as to why I'm running. You've seen with the Democratic machine, with all the different faces that they've put on it, be they black, white, male, or female, has not delivered for this city. To take nothing away from Governor Schaefer's legacy, but a lot of people forget Teddy McKeldin's role in the Inner Harbor, and that he too had a vision for Baltimore and had worked with our community. Republicans are painted as racist in a lot of contexts given the national climate with the Tea Party, but he was a civil rights leader, and he was most definitely a founder and a leader in making sure that we all knew we had a place in Baltimore. And I think that while we've been given people who look like us, that our politics has been away from that for too long.
What makes Catalina Byrd better for Baltimore, and why should they vote for you over the Democratic nominee on November 8th?
The reality of the substance of my platform. For everything that we propose that we'd like to do with our administration, have we done the studies, and do we have the reports and the facts and the data to support? We've done our feasibility studies long before we said anything about running. So it's a matter of listening and knowing the difference between rhetoric and actual substance, and what kind of Baltimore do you want to live in? Do you want to live in the state that it is in now and has been for the next 4 years or the next 20 years? Or do you actually want to have an opportunity to help and be a vital part of bringing Baltimore back to what it once was?
How can the viewers learn more about you or get in touch with your campaign?
The campaign website is still under development, but if you go to byrdforbaltimore.com or at byrdforbaltimore, the number 4, Baltimore, we are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, as well as the website should be coming up by the end of the week. We just had to fix some technical things.
Byrd is B-Y-R-D.
B-Y-R-D.
Okay. Catalina Byrd, independent candidate for mayor, Baltimore City 2011. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you.
And we wish you well November 8th.
I appreciate it.
And we'll be back with more Value My Vote.